The sun is barely up. Dew still clings to the grass. You crouch at the edge of a grove, fingers closing around fruit cool from the night. And you eat too before you pocket the rest. By midday, you will have gathered enough for everyone. The rest of the day belongs to you. For roughly 95% of the time humans have existed, this was an ordinary morning, not a fantasy, not a holiday, a Tuesday. In 1963, an anthropologist named Richard Lee went to live with the Juhuansi, a foraging people in the Kalahari Desert. He did something simple. He counted. How many hours did they actually spend getting food? The answer stunned him. Around 15 to 20 hours a week, 2 or 3 hours a day. The rest went to rest, to talk, to visiting, to making things, to lying in the shade through the worst of the heat. These were people living in a desert, on land a farmer would call worthless. And they were spending less time working than you do. The anthropologist Marshall Salins gave this a name. He called hunter-gatherers the original affluent society, not rich in things, rich in time. So here is the question that should bother you. If foraging gave your ancestors that much freedom, why did almost every human society on Earth abandon it? Why did your ancestors trade the grove for the field? The standard story goes like this. Farming was progress. More food, more safety, more comfort. The first rung on a ladder that leads to everything you have now. It is the story in every textbook. It is also on the level of a single human life, close to backwards. Let the bones explain. There is a field of science called paleopathology. That just means reading disease in ancient skeletons. A bone remembers. Starvation, infection, the grinding stress of repeated labor, the slow theft of iron from the blood. All of it leaves a mark you can still read thousands of years later. And when scientists lined up the skeletons from before farming against the skeletons from after, they found something nobody expected. The farmers were in worse shape. At a site in Illinois called Dickson Mounds, the anthropologist George Amelagos and his colleagues studied a population that made the switch from foraging to maize agriculture around 1,000 years ago. Same place, same people, before and after. After the corn arrived, the rate of a bone condition called porotic hyperostosis climbed sharply. That condition is spongy, porous patches on the skull, and it is the signature of severe anemia, a body starved of iron. Infections rose. The years of life lost to childhood illness went up. People were getting sick younger and dying sooner than their foraging grandparents. This was not a fluke of one place. In 2011, a researcher named Amanda Mummert led a review that gathered skeletal evidence from agricultural transitions all over the world. The pattern held across continents. As farming took hold, average human height dropped. Tooth decay exploded. Markers of malnutrition and physical stress went up, not down. Sit with the strangeness of that. The thing sold to you as the dawn of plenty made the people living through it shorter, sicker, and more worn down. Why? Start with the food itself. A forager eats a moving feast. Roots one week, fruit the next, fish, honey, a strip of dried antelope, chewed slow at dusk. Dozens of plants across a year. That variety is armor. It spreads your nutrition across many sources, so no single failure can sink you. A farmer eats the opposite. One crop. Wheat or rice or corn, day after day after day. When that one crop carries your whole life, two things happen. Your diet narrows to the bone, and when the harvest fails, there is no grove to fall back on. There is hunger. Now look at the teeth. Grain is starch, and starch turns to sugar in your mouth. and sugar feeds the bacteria that rot teeth. Forager skulls grin with clean, hard teeth. Early farmer skulls are a different sight. Cavities, abscesses, teeth ground flat from the grit of stone-milled flour. Some jaws show the kind of dental ruin that meant constant, dull, inescapable pain. Then there is the matter of standing still. A forager moves. When a place is used up, you walk to a fresh one. Your waste, your dead, your sickness, you leave behind. A farmer cannot walk away. The whole point of a field is that you stay beside it, year after year, in the same spot, with the same people, and increasingly with animals. Walk into Çatalhöyük. It is one of the oldest farming towns ever found, in what is now Turkey, around 9,000 years old. The archaeologist Ian Hodder spent decades digging it. Picture it. Mud brick houses packed so tight there were no streets. People crossed the rooftops and climbed down ladders into their homes. They buried their dead beneath the floors they slept on. They lived shoulder to shoulder with their grain and their garbage and each other in numbers no foraging band ever reached. Crowding like that is a gift to disease. Most of the epidemic illnesses that would later rewrite human history came from this exact arrangement. Living pressed against animals. Measles, smallpox, tuberculosis, influenza, many of them trace back to germs that jumped from cattle and pigs and birds into people who now lived in their midst. Scientists call those zoonotic diseases, meaning sickness that crosses over from animals. You do not get a smallpox epidemic in a band of 30 people walking the savannah. You get it when hundreds crowd together beside their herds and never leave. Farming did not just change the menu. It built the perfect house for plague. And the work was relentless. Foraging is skilled, but it has an edge. Find the food, and you are done. Farming has no edge. There is always a field to clear, a weed to pull, a ditch to dig, water to haul, grain to grind. The grinding alone broke bodies. Archaeologists find the skeletons of early farming women with damaged knees, arthritic toes, and backbones reshaped by hours each day spent kneeling over a grinding stone. The freedom rigidly measured in the Kalahari, those long, idle afternoons, drained out of human life. It would not come back for a very long time. And here is the cruelest part. The people living through it may never have known. The decline crept in across centuries, one slightly harder generation at a time. No one wakes up and decides to be shorter than their grandmother. The trap closes too slowly to feel. So why did anyone do it? Here is the logic, and it is beautiful and terrible at once. Farming is worse for the individual, but better for the population. A field of wheat feeds more mouths per acre than wild land ever could. More food means more babies survive. More babies means more mouths. More mouths means you need more food, which means more field, which means you can never go back. Each generation is a little more trapped than the last. Nobody chose this. They took one reasonable step and then another, and the ratchet turned only one way. The writer Jared Diamond put it bluntly. He called the adoption of agriculture the worst mistake in the history of the human race. Not because farming failed, because it succeeded at the level of the species by quietly making the average human life smaller. More people, each a little worse off. There is one more cost, and it is the one you still feel. A forager owns almost nothing. There is no point. You carry what you carry. Food gets shared out fast because it spoils, and a hunter who hoarded meat was mocked, not admired. Grain is different. Grain is dry. Grain can be stored, counted, hidden, taxed, and owned. The moment a society could pile up a surplus that lasted, it became possible for one person to control it and another to go without. The flat sharing world of the band gave way to something new. Some had full granaries, some had empty hands. Inequality, the kind you still live inside, has a root in a sealed jar of wheat. So go back to that morning. The dew, the fruit cool from the night, the whole long afternoon stretching out, unclaimed, yours. Your ancestors gave it up, not in one foolish moment, but one harvest at a time, each step sensible, until there was no field left to walk away from. They traded variety for a single crop, motion for a fixed spot, clean teeth and tall bones, and idle hours for a fuller granary and a fuller graveyard. You are reading this because that trade was made. Every road and city and screen you know sits on top of it. The wheat won. It just did not win for the people who planted it. And the next time you feel the strange weight of work that never seems to end, the sense that there is always more field to tend and never quite enough day to tend it, you can name the morning that feeling was born. Not in a factory, not in an office, in a quiet valley, 9,000 years ago, when your ancestor knelt down beside a patch of grain and decided, for the very best of reasons, never to walk away again. If the world you came from feels a little closer now, that's exactly the point. Subscribe, and every week we'll uncover another piece of who you used to be.